2h30 d'émission et l'impression d'avoir davantage assisté à un match de boxe entre Marine Le Pen et Emmanuel Macron qu'à un débat de présidentiel. Peu de temps pour les débats de fond, beaucoup d'invectives, d'attaques, voire même d'insultes.
Vous êtes en fait la France qui se soumet.
La grande prêtresse de la peur, elle est en face de moi.
De toute façon, la France sera dirigée par une femme, ce sera ou moi ou Madame Merkel.
Vous êtes la coproduction du système que vous dénoncez, parce que vous en vivez. Vous êtes son parasite.
Les deux arbitres, Nathalie Sincry et Christophe Jacubizine, ont eu du mal à siffler les changements de round.
Pardon, mais on a compris.
Attendez, c'est inaudible.
Car les deux candidats ont surtout suivi leur propre feuille de route avec un même objectif, cogner l'adversaire. D'abord, Marine Le Pen. Interrogée sur son état d'esprit si elle était élue, la candidate du FN brandit tout de suite sa première arme, lier autant que possible Emmanuel Macron au quinquennat Hollande.
Alors, vous êtes l'héritier de François Hollande. Vous avez participé à un gouvernement qui a fait 35 milliards de taxes et d'impôts supplémentaires pendant le quinquennat, mais c'est pas vous.
Au début, on avait bien avancé.
Hollande Junior.
Quitte à lui faire payer des bilans qui ne sont pas vraiment les siens, notamment sur le chômage et la loi travail.
Vous parlez de ça, de prévention. Et ça vous a pas ennuyé dans la loi El Khomri d'effondrer la santé, en milieu professionnel?
Non,
la loi El Khomri, parce que vous n'avez pas voulu l'assumer, mais c'est la loi Macron.
La loi Macron.
Mais si c'est la loi Macron.
Mais non. Bah non.
Ça, c'est sa première stratégie. Mais pour donner ses coups, Marine Le Pen a une deuxième tactique. Faire d'Emmanuel Macron l'apôtre de la mondialisation sauvage.
Donc, vous voyez, moi, je suis la candidate du pouvoir d'achat. Vous, Monsieur Macron, vous êtes le candidat du pouvoir d'acheter la France, de la dépecer.
L'occasion de ressortir du chapeau la visite à l'usine Whirlpool et d'accuser Emmanuel Macron de mépriser les salariés.
Jamais je n'ai fait ce que vous avez fait l'autre jour, c'est-à-dire aller profiter de la détresse des gens. Ça,
on aura l'occasion de revenir.
Moi, jamais je suis allé me planquer dans une salle de commerce avec des responsables syndicaux.
En face, l'ancien ministre de l'économie rend les coups. Et lui aussi le fait sur deux axes principaux. D'abord, en ne cessant de rappeler les origines politiques de Marine Le Pen.
Vous êtes l'héritière d'un système, d'un parti, d'un nom. Vous êtes la véritable héritière, non seulement d'un nom, d'un parti politique, de tout un système qui prospère sur la colère des Français depuis tant et tant d'années.
Il l'attaque aussi sur ses propositions. C'est son deuxième axe, pointer les incohérences et les imprécisions du programme de la candidate frontiste.
Non, je vais d'abord démanteler les bêtises que vous avez dites tout à l'heure. Moi, j'ai un projet sérieux qui n'est pas du saut de cabri.
C'est
vraiment un galimatia.
Comme le Qatar,
oui, mais
c'est
Madame
pas
Le Pen,
une banque que je veux, c'est un fonds souverain.
N'importe quoi. Donc, ce que vous proposez, comme d'habitude, c'est de la poudre de perlimpinpin.
Emmanuel Macron insiste par exemple beaucoup sur les modalités concrètes de la sortie de l'euro proposée par Marine Le Pen.
Vous proposez bien de sortir de l'euro.
Non, je veux renégocier pour que l'euro, on s'en libère et on le transforme en monnaie commune.
Non mais à quoi servira l'euro?
Mais c'est une monnaie commune, c'est un panier de monnaie, vous le savez, encore une fois.
Notre dette, elle sera payée en euros ou en francs? C'est ça la question.
Votre vision de l'Europe.
Non mais c'est essentiel parce que c'est le grand n'importe quoi du projet de Madame Le Pen.
Mais si chacun des candidats a suivi son plan d'attaque au cours de la confrontation, on aurait tort de les mettre sur le même plan. Certes, Emmanuel Macron fait quelques erreurs et imprécisions. Mais Marine Le Pen, elle, entasse les intox. CICE, loi El Khomri, coût de l'immigration, retraite à 60 ans, fichier S, double peine, GPA, la candidate du Front National aligne les fausses informations à la manière de Donald Trump. Mais surtout, elle fait preuve d'une véhémence jamais vue dans un débat d'entre-deux tours. Du début à la fin, Marine Le Pen reste dans son obsession, rabaisser l'adversaire, complicité avec l'islamisme.
Non seulement vous n'avez pas de projet, mais en plus vous avez une complaisance pour le fondamentalisme islamiste.
Tentative de déstabilisation.
Le Pen,
je sais
c'est
que
vous qui m'avez
agacé.
interrompu.
Buvez un coup, ça va aller mieux. Je vous sens un peu agacé.
Allusion sans preuve réelle.
J'espère qu'on n'apprendra pas
Madame
que
Le
vous
Pen.
avez un compte offshore aux Bahamas ou je sais pas, j'en sais rien.
Quitte parfois à descendre très très bas.
Je vois que vous cherchez à jouer avec moi à l'élève et au professeur, mais en ce qui me concerne, ce n'est pas particulièrement mon truc, je vous le dis.
Moi non plus.
Ici, c'est évidemment à sa femme, Brigitte Macron, ancienne professeure du candidat d'En Marche, que Marine Le Pen fait référence. Finalement, ce débat laisse un sentiment assez net. Emmanuel Macron, favori des sondages, a défendu ses propositions et Marine Le Pen, elle, a posé les jalons de ce qu'elle entend être pour les années à venir, en cas de défaite au second tour, une force d'opposition.
Hey, can I call you Joe? Okay, good.
Who am I? Why am I here?
You're simply wrong.
It was true then.
No.
It's true now.
Rick, I'll tell you what. $10,000? $10,000 bet?
I'm not in the betting business, but
okay.
I'll show you this. I'll show you the book.
There is no Soviet domination of Eastern Europe, and there never will be under a Ford administration.
It took the president 14 days before he called the attack in Benghazi an act of terror.
Get the transcript.
He did, in fact, sir. So let me call it an act of terror.
Can you say that a little louder, Candy?
He did call it an act of terror.
We have a question right here.
Yes, how has the national debt personally affected each of your lives? Yes, how has the national debt personally affected?
It's 3 agencies of government when I get there that are gone. Commerce, education, and the, what's the third one there? Let's see. I would do away with the education, commerce, and let's see. I can't. The third one I can't. Sorry. Oops.
But are hesitating on the likability issue, where they seem to like Barack Obama more.
I don't think I'm that bad.
You're likable enough.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to finding your facts on that, because that just doesn't...
I'll tell you what the facts are.
Rick, again.
You had them.
I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
The newspaper.
I have as much experience in the Congress as Jack Kennedy did when he sought the presidency.
I served with Jack Kennedy. I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
That was really uncalled for, Senator.
The jeers, the cheers, the laughs,
I appreciate it.
and gasps. As we approach CNN's Republican debates, we decided to look back at some of history's most exciting primary debate moments. We start back in 1980, when Ronald Reagan essentially catapulted himself into the nomination with this defiant remark.
Would the sound man please turn Mr. Reagan's mic off for a minute? I am paying for this microphone, Mr. Speaker.
He was funding the debate with his campaign money to try to include all the candidates. Of course, he went on to win the New Hampshire primary and the presidency. In 1992, Jerry Brown and Bill Clinton got into a spat on the stage.
He is funneling money to his wife's law firm for state business. That's number one. I don't care what you say about me, but you ought to be ashamed of yourself for jumping on my wife. You're not worth being on the same platform as my wife. I'll tell you something, Mr. Clinton. Now, don't try to escape it.
George W. Bush and John McCain argued about negative ads in a 2000 CNN debate.
This is an attack piece.
That is not by my campaign.
What says paid for by John McCain?
That is not by my campaign.
And who can forget when Hillary Clinton was asked about her likability in 2008?
What can you say to the voters of New Hampshire on this stage tonight who see your resume and like it, but are hesitating on the likability issue, where they seem to like Barack Obama more?
Well, that hurts my feelings.
I'm sorry, Senator. I'm sorry.
I don't think I'm that bad.
You're likable enough.
Thank you so much.
Former Texas Governor Rick Perry would surely like to have this moment back from 2012.
It's 3 agencies of government when I get there that are gone. Commerce, education, and the, what's the third one there? Let's see. I can't. The third one I can't. Sorry. Oops.
And then, of course, the Fox News Republican debate from just last month. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie argued with Senator Rand Paul over the government's mass collection of personal communications.
When you're sitting in a subcommittee just blowing hot air about this, you can say things like that.
I don't trust President Obama with our records. I know you gave him a big hug, and if you want to give him a big hug again, go right ahead.
And this moment needs no introduction.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't.
With this roster of candidates on stage again, you can expect some more fireworks. Brian Stelter, CNN, New York.
The Republican presidential debates, Wednesday at 6 and 8 p.m., only on CNN.
One indisputable truth, debates, well, they can make history.
I've been there now.
September 26, 1960, the first televised presidential debate, signaling a new era where appearances matter more than ever and gaffes, however small, are magnified.
The goals are the same for all Americans.
John F. Kennedy, a young senator from Massachusetts, facing off against Vice President Richard Nixon, who's known to be a fierce debater. But on screen, Kennedy looks cool and calm, while Nixon looks uncomfortable, sweating profusely under the hot studio lights.
I think I better shave.
Nixon flounders under the glare of television for all 4 debates. Kennedy goes on to win the election. In 1976, President Gerald Ford makes this blunder in his debate with Georgia Governor Jimmy Carter.
There is no Soviet domination of Eastern Europe, and there never will be under a Ford administration. I'm sorry, could I just...
The remark becomes a central theme in Carter's campaign and is blamed by many for costing Ford the election.
Emphasis.
In 1980, Ronald Reagan is repeatedly attacked by President Carter for his stance on health care.
Governor Reagan, as a matter of fact, began his political career campaigning around this nation against Medicare.
But Reagan wins fans and the election by staying cool.
There you go again.
4 years later, President Reagan again uses humor to handle attacks on his age during his debate with Walter Mondale.
And I want you to know that also I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience.
In the next election, Democratic candidate Michael Dukakis is asked this controversial question in his debate with Vice President George Bush.
Governor, if Kitty Dukakis were raped and murdered, would you favor an irrevocable death penalty for the killer?
No, I don't, Bernard, and I think you know that I've opposed the death penalty during all of my life.
The public sees his answer as cold and dispassionate, and that very night his poll numbers drop. During the 1988 vice presidential debate, Republican Senator Dan Quayle's comparison to John F. Kennedy elicits this blistering response from his opponent.
Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Body language plays a part in the presidential debate in 1992. George H.W. Bush deliberately looks at his watch, and he pays for it when the audience and voters see it as disrespectful.
There's differences.
Body language makes a difference in the debate between Al Gore and George W. Bush as well. Gore sighs over and over again, and Bush, the underdog, surprises by winning the debate and, of course, the election.
That's what a governor...
Both President Obama and Governor Romney are seasoned debaters, and experts say neither are prone to making major gaffes. But if there is one thing that history's taught us when it comes to presidential debates, expect the unexpected.
Richard Nixon was the favorite to win the Republican presidential nomination in 1960. Just 14 years after he was tapped by a group of small-town businessmen to run for Congress in California, Richard Nixon stood at the top of his party. As he mapped out an ambitious 50-state campaign, he was challenged by his opponent, John F. Kennedy, to a series of televised debates, the first in American history. Even when hospitalized for 2 weeks with a knee injury, Nixon remained confident, anxious for the debates to begin, eager once again to use television to talk directly to the voters.
The Republican candidate, Vice President Richard M. Nixon, and the Democratic candidate, Senator John F. Kennedy. According to rules set by the candidates themselves, each man should...
The Nixon-Kennedy debates would forever change the way Americans chose their presidents. Political rallies and old-fashioned handshaking became much less important than the image on the television screen.
You must understand that Nixon himself had said, I don't want any makeup on for these particular debates. What I tried to explain to Dick was he has a certain characteristics of his skin where it's almost transparent. And it was a very nice thought to say, you know, I don't want any makeup, but that he really needed it in order to have what we would call even an acceptable television picture. And, of course, JFK, here he'd been riding in motorcades all over California with the top down. He looked like a bronze warrior when he came into Chicago. He really did.
I know what it means to see people who are unemployed. I know Senator Kennedy feels as deeply about these problems as I do. But our disagreement is not about the goals for America, but only about the means to reach those goals.
The first debate was costly to Nixon. The radio audience thought he had won, but the largest television audience in history had seen the vice president haggard and drawn, and had been given its first sustained look at the Kennedy style.